And welcome back for another episode. So let's have a quick look at what's going on. There's not huge changes between the end of the last episode and start of this episode, although there's a few things. First of all, we set up a colony in Bordeaux, and we'll be sending in infrastructure and colonies from Brest to there, so we'll have that. I mean, it doesn't have a huge amount of resources, or rather, it doesn't have a huge accessibility, I believe. A total accessibility of 0.5. Amount of resources is actually 370 million, around there, but it doesn't have a huge accessibility, so it's a bit hard to get, but that will still allow us to get some trading going on between Brest and Bordeaux, which will be relatively safe since our civilian shipping has had a bit of a hard time lately because of the enemy fleets preying on our shipping. Now, we did get a fair bit of money from our trade deal with the Spanish, but it wasn't enough to pull us from the debt right now. Unfortunately, or rather, we should be gaining our income since we haven't gone forward, so it hasn't taken into account the major supplies are no longer costing us at least that much. So, while it might not be that we'll get all of the debt paid this year, it's very likely that we'll get majority of it paid this year, and then that's going to get rid of the economic production malice that we have right now, which is only 25% from what it used to be, I don't know, 40 or something like that. So it has certainly improved. We are, of course, building a lot of ships, but that is something that we went through previous episode, where we should be getting some pretty good research done at the start of the year here. Or at least the armor, and then we'll get the better engine technology not that far from here. Now, in terms of other colonies, we are setting up a colony in, actually two colonies, one in Caribbean, but that one is over here in Haiti, but that is, currently it requires infrastructure. We've started building it in Tortuga, so that's going to be sorted out soon enough. And then another one in Gulf of Mexico, which is over there, the new colony, so it's a bit of a trip there from Orleans, but we should be getting there quite easily, and it will then, of course, provide some minerals. I believe the accessibility total was only 1, but it has a decent bit of resources, and it's iron, rum, and wood, all of which are relatively important, especially in New Orleans. They don't produce rum at all. And iron is very low. Wood is pretty good, but like, at least rum is something they haven't been producing so far. And then, of course, in the Caribbean, the colony will be producing. It has another 1.0 total accessibility. Again, not great, but at the same time, we will allow our traders to go within the same zone instead of going across a sea or something like that, and hopefully be somewhat safe. Also, our ships from India are still in Cape of Good Hope, but they should be approaching South Atlantic soon. And we have assigned some of the governors to our future colonies already, and there's been some development in the diplomatic front, but nothing concrete yet. But I'll keep you posted once we have something. But anyway, our goal this year is probably going to be repairing the fleet in Quebec. We'll start upgrading, hopefully, the fleet in Brest, and we'll keep on building ships the best we can, but since we can only build them essentially only in Brest right now, because the Quebec shipyards are busy repairing, so it's going to be a bit limited amount that we can do. It would appear that there is a British vessel approaching Brest. Now, there seems to be only one ship so far, and it does have pretty high speed. What we'll probably do is we'll send in some ships to drive it away, just long enough so that we can see that it's actually turning away and running away, and we lose sight of it, and then we'll return. I don't want to have another repeat of the similar trap that the Dutch did us in American East Coast. The British brig is, of course, running away. They do have so much higher speed that we won't be able to catch them. However, we will be sending these frigates that we send to drive the brig away towards the entrance to the North Sea, mostly to at least allow us to spot any enemies trying to go towards Brest, and hopefully prevent any further events like this happening. Now, it's 5 frigates. Of course, they are light frigates, so they don't have huge armament, but they should have enough firepower to at least drive away any singular brigs. Now, if they send in a battle fleet, then the frigates probably don't stand a chance. But they are relatively quick, so they might be able to run away at least from larger ships. We have now designed the new cannons, all 3 calibers, 6, 8 and 10 pounders, and we've now started finding ways to make our shipyard operations a bit more effective. Now that's also going to be a long-term goal, but at the same time we can now start redesigning a lot of our ships, especially once we get the higher armor and better engines, which are both going to be during this year, or at least we can get the prerequisite checks for those. Our survey vessel has found out a British colony in Portsmouth. Now it is, by the looks of it, very small still. So technically if we wanted to, we could try to invade that, but that would probably end very badly very quickly. Since London is right there, Portsmouth is over here, so yeah, the distance is not in our favour. But it is certainly a possibility later on. Looks like the British are trying their scouting methods again, this time in Quebec, so we'll send in some bricks to drive them away. The bricks will be relatively quick, so it will actually be a bit of a threat to the enemy. Of course, we don't have an enormous spotting range on those, but it should be enough to at least keep an eye on them a little bit and drive them away. We'll probably follow them until we lose track of them and then pull back. I don't want them to see how many ships are currently in repair here. The enemy brig does have the speed advantage. Our brigs are trying to keep up, but they are not able to. We do still have eyes on them though, but they are... I think they might be moving in circles. Or they're just... maybe they're just taunting us, I don't know. We'll see what they do, but if need be, we do still have some ships over here that we can use. Of course, a lot of our ships are currently in overhaul, so it's mostly going to be the Quebec Reserve that we can use. And that's not a huge fleet, to be fair. There's some 5th rates and then 2 more 6th rates and 2 7th rates that we can use there. It would appear that the British are indeed turning back towards Quebec slowly but surely, so we'll send in 2 more brigs to intercept them somewhere around here most likely. And hopefully we can just turn them back, but they do have the speed advantage, so it's very unlikely that we'll actually catch them. But our hope is that the ships, we can just force them to go back a little bit, and what I might do is I might actually send these soon back towards Quebec in case they try to do another maneuver or something like that. Just so that we'll have ships around here protecting the planet itself. It looks like the British are trying to sail between our fleets here, so we'll send this one, which was heading back to Quebec. We'll send it to intercept that, and hopefully we can catch that fleet. There's only 1 ship, so we should be able to defeat it without too much problems. But we just need to catch it, and that's the tricky part here. So now the British are sailing towards Quebec, so what we'll do is we'll send 2 of the frigates that we have there. 2 out of 4 we'll send towards, and it's going to be in a triangle at this point. Hopefully we can get to there in time. Of course, the frigates are a bit slower, so it's going to be a bit trickier to keep up, but hopefully we can keep that ship away from Quebec. And if we're lucky, we could even sunk it, but at least if we can keep it away from Quebec long enough to convince them to turn around. That bloody ship just keeps dancing around us. We'll send one of the brig groups back to Quebec so that we can still send in some ships there, because we're running a bit low on ships that can actually sail out from there. I mean, I suppose there might be some from the Tortuga fleet already done with their overhaul, so, well, actually those are the support vessels, so no, all of those are going through the overhauls, and then there's a few of us, or rather there's a few of these that are also going through overhauls, so we don't have a huge amount of ships. And they just keep going around and around. The British are now sailing dangerously close towards Quebec, so what we'll do is we'll send the final frigates that we have available right now, try to intercept them. And hopefully we can stop them before they get any wrong ideas that they can just freely sail to Quebec and spy our ships. At last the enemy is turning around, so either our second pair of frigates scared them away, or they actually got the intel that they came here for. which is actually quite possible. They got pretty close, so it might have been within the reach of their sensors, which is very bad news because they now know how many ships we have here. Of course, our fleet is pretty strong, so it should be scaring them a fair bit, but it's still bad news. After completing another 2 victory raids in Brest, we now have 101 ships in the Brest fleet alone. Then of course there's the 5 frigates that are guarding the entrance to the North Sea. So our fleets in Europe are actually rather strong. We have completed the research on thicker armor, so now we're focusing all our efforts in Brest to get the better sail technology, which we will be getting in less than a month now, and after that we'll start redesigning our masts as quickly as possible, so we'll probably keep the 25 labs concentrated on that, just so that we can get our ships upgraded, because now we have the thicker armor, we got the better guns. We do need to get the better gunpowder storage, of course, designed, but that is not too big of an issue, I don't think. Of course, we do also need to improve our fire controls a little bit. We are currently working on that to some degree, but we do have more things to add to that, so that's gonna be something that we do need to also put a bit more effort on than we currently are. But the problem is that we have our research labs divided into 4 places, so that kind of forces us to pick and choose on what to focus in where. We have also decided to not only move the fleet guarding the North Sea entrance a bit closer, we'll be moving on to the wreckage that is over there, which is going to allow us to be fairly close and keep an eye on the jump point itself. Also, we'll be sending another group to guard the North Atlantic entrance, just in case that the enemy tries to go around there as well, so we can keep a bit more eye on. Now, there is still the Gulf of Cadiz where the enemy could enter the zone, but I think that's going to be perhaps a bit too risky for the enemy, because the Spanish can certainly intercept them there, and we could even ask the Spanish if they'd be willing to take over guarding that one while we guard the other 2 entrances, just so that we can keep Bay of Biscay somewhat safe, because this is where majority of the coalition of the continent has their fleet, aka us and the Spanish. We have completed research on better sails, so we've started redesigning our masts and gunpowder storages, and since we are allocating 25 research labs on that, it should be done fairly quickly. The sloop mast will be completed by the end of the month. Then the first gunpowder storage is going to be done very quickly, and then we'll get the frigate mast and so forth. We'll alternate between the gunpowder and the masts, so just so that we can get them both in a relatively quick manner, and then as soon as we get the sloop mast, and I think we may need to wait for this one. So actually, let's put that on the top of the queue, because we have designed or planned our 6th ray again to be quite different. So not only will it have, it will be using the 10-pounder guns. Of course, it will only be fitting 2 sections of those to fit the ship. But it will also have 1 extra layer of armor, and the sloop mast that we have is, from what we've seen, is going to give us more speed on our brigs than what the British have on theirs. So that is going to be useful, and then with the extra layer of armor and the bigger caliber guns, we can move in quickly near the enemy, fire broadside, and then escape, and hopefully that broadside, especially if we have a huge amount of brigs with those, we can probably do a decent bit of damage on the enemy, and then pull back a little bit to, if possible, slow down the enemy a tiny bit. Especially if we concentrate our fire on 1 ship at a time. We'll be able to do that a few times, most likely, over the course of battle. Of course, the speed differences are probably not going to be insanely good for us, but it will still be in our favor from now on, or once we get those ships going. Now that we have gotten the sloop mast design, as well as some of the gunpowder storages, we have now finalized our design for our new 6th ray, which is going to have a bit thicker armor than the old version. It has a longer deployment time, it has higher speed, a lot higher speed actually. 2.5 knots faster, so that is going to be very good, and it should be at least faster than the British ships, or the British brigs. So this is going to be fairly good, and that also it has 2 sets of 10-pounders. A total amount of cannons is called 16, which is the same as the previous one, but of course the fire rate is a little bit lower than what it would be. We do have a B variant, which is not quite ready yet, which has 4 sets of 6-pounders. So, and yes, of course those would be reloading more than twice as quickly. But I have a feeling that this, with the extra armor rating, can indeed move in fairly close quickly, fire broadside, especially if there's like, say, dozen or 2 dozen of these, and they move in towards a relatively small fleet. And they can do a lot of damage, and especially if we concentrate fire on 1 or 2 ships. And we should be able to do a decent bit of damage on them with these. Of course, we do need to sail fairly close with these ships. Essentially, we need to be within 40,000 kilometers. So let's say we go up to 35,000. Now, the hit chance is not terribly good at that range, but we should be able to deal a lot of damage, and even if the enemy is firing on us from further away, we'll be able to withstand the damage for a little while at least, enough to get close enough and fire and then pull back. And hopefully that will allow us to slow down 1 or 2 of the enemy ships to let our bigger ships catch up with them. We have also redesigned the 7th raids already, both the survey variant sloop and the battle variant sloop. Now there's not a huge difference from the previous design. I mean, they are faster and all that, but they do have more dense armor, but that's about it. Our 4th rate shipyard in Press has added another slipway, so we can now build 3 ships at once in there. Also, in Quebec we added an extra slipway just so that we can repair a little bit quicker. We don't plan on starting building yet another slipway. We'll wait until we can update the 4th rate to the newer 4th rate, which we are currently working towards, but we don't have the necessary parts quite yet. Speaking of repairing the ships, we've already repaired some of the ships, but as you can see, there's still plenty of ships that need repair, so this is going to take a while. As soon as the ships that have been repaired are done with their overhaul, we'll start transferring them to the Quebec Reserve for the time being, just so that we can keep track on how many ships we actually have available to us right now. Because the ones that are currently being repaired, while some of them can find, there's a lot of ships that have significant damage, and it's going to take a long while to repair. And of course, the internal damages have been repaired and all that, but there are certainly some ships that really need some attention. We've mostly been focusing on the 5th rate by the looks of it lately. I've just been using the auto-select in the shipyard screen. We're making a decent progress in the gunpowder and mast research. We've now designed the 3rd rate mast, and we're now focusing on getting the gunpowder storage, just so that we can actually then update our frigate designs already with the new gunpowder storages, because we do kind of need them before we can actually finalize the designs, just so that we can save up a little bit more tonnage inside the ships for other stuff. Also, we've managed to build 1 more 2nd rate. We started building another one, but that means that we are building quite nicely new ships. I mean, we're also getting a decent bit of our income here, so our economic production modifier is now 80%, and it will be just going up by the looks of it, so that's good. Also, there is a battle in Caribbean. It looks like the British try to make a civilian mining colony in one of the places where we already were mining. So our garrison, as it was with the Dutch, our garrison is beating them down quite handily. We haven't taken too much casualties. We've taken some casualties, of course, but nothing that we can't handle, really, and we've inflicted a lot of casualties for them. So I'm pretty sure that this will be a victory, sooner rather than later. And I don't think we need to send anything in there unless the British start sending in troops, which, honestly, if they start sending a lot of troops there, that means that their Port Royal would be much weaker defended, and that might open up a way for us to start shipping troops there instead. But we'll see about that. We'll keep an eye on the situation. With some new parts having been designed, we have now managed to update our 5th rate design, which is no doubt one of the most common ships that we have in our navy right now. So we have this design completed. We did also complete the design for the 6th rate B variant, which is the 6-pounder cannons instead of the 10-pounders, which I suppose we'll see if we can actually build those from the shipyard right now. So if we have a look at that, shipyards, that is still undergoing the retooling, so we can't actually see it yet. But possibly we might be able to build them from the same shipyard, which would be very useful. Actually, oh yeah, over here we are adding another slipway and so forth. We still need to wait for a little bit longer to get the bigger gunpowder storage, which is going to be done in August, so in about a month from now. And then we can retool or redesign the 4th rate and start retooling the shipyards for that. But we can start retooling the creep shipyard here, so let's do that right away. It should be creep 1703. So yeah, it's going to be done in October, so that's pretty good. And then we can start refitting our ships in here. I mean, of course we do want to build more ships as well, but at the same time updating the old ones is very important. I mean, of course we already have over 100 ships in Brest, or at least in Bay of Biscay, so it is quite a sizable fleet, so upgrading all of those ships will take a long while. So maybe we'll do like about 50-50 of building new ships and updating the old ones, just so that we can expand the fleet even further, but also we can have a bit better ships. Also, the battle still rages on in the Caribbean. Of course, it has slowed down a fair bit now that the enemy has dug in quite substantially, so it will probably drag out for another month or so before it's over. But we are winning it clearly, so we don't really have a problem with that. We'll be getting some more civilian mining complexes from them after the battle is done, most likely. Now, the few more parts have been designed. We've managed to finalize our designs for the 3rd and 4th rate vessels, so we are now going to at least retool the 4th rate shipyard in Brest to build these. We might start... Actually, I'm not entirely sure if we have any other 3rd rate. We have a 4th rate in Quebec, but that is currently... Well, actually, we could update that. Retool that for Plug Nord. That's going to be done in January by the looks of it. But that should be alright. The one in Brest is going to be done a little bit faster. Partially because it does have more slipway, so it does have higher speed. To some degree anyway. But I think we had our 3rd rate shipyards in Toulon, so we don't actually have any right now. Interesting. But anyway, that is now being retooled, so we'll be able to start upgrading a bit more of our ships sooner rather than later. We have now emerged victorious in the battle in Caribbean, and we have captured 3 civilian mining complexes from the British. We are of course buying the resources here, although we should probably set up a transport to gather up the minerals from this colony as well. We haven't been actually gathering them, but we can set up one ship to bring minerals from both of these colonies back to Tortuga. We have completed port facilities in Plaisance, and now we started building more financial centers and fuel refineries there. Also in Brest, we managed to retool the 6th rate shipyard. Now, we will be adding another slipway there. We are not currently building anything quite yet, because to speed things up, we'll start building some sloop masts and the 10-pounder cannons here with our factories. To prefab them just so that we can then retool and or build more of the new 6 rates faster, because we do need to get them built rather quickly, and retooling costs compared to building a new one, there is still a decent difference between there, but it would take over 6 months to retool one right now. So if we get the mast and the cannons, that is going to save us about 1/3 of that, so it's probably going to take only about 4 months. The British just don't know when to give up. They've set up yet another mining colony on that same island. Since our troops have dug in, we should be able to deal a fair bit of damage on them, and we might even capture those mines as well. The Baguette class has now been updated, as well as all the other battle vessels that we have right now. So we added in an extra layer of armor, and then we got rid of the chaser cannons because we haven't used them probably even once, maybe one time with the Dutch, but that was an outlier, quite frankly. So we've gotten rid of them. We have 16 sets of 10-pounders, which is quite a bit. And with the extra layer of armor, now this is going to be a bit more expensive to build, as you might imagine. It does have increased speed by about a knot, and the firepower is much better. We don't have good fire controls, unfortunately, to attach to this, but with the current ones, they'll at least be able to deal a fair bit of damage, and with the extra layer of armor, we'll be able to tank a lot more from the enemy ships, meaning that we'll be able to deal more damage on the enemy over time. Not to mention, with this amount of weaponry, that's going to be quite substantial damage. We have finally designed our new masts, all of them, so we are now focusing on other things. For example, construction rate is going to be researched relatively quickly. It's going to be a bit more than a year. We might be able to speed that up a little bit though. Then we will research some upgrades for our gunpowder, because I feel like getting the mast upgrades as quickly as possible will allow us to keep up with the Dutch and the British ships a bit better. And then we are researching some optic upgrades. Unfortunately, the battle in Caribbean is currently not going in our favour. We don't have a huge amount of troops in, so we only have one brigade of troops in Tortuga. I don't want to leave that more lightly defended than what it currently is. It is very much possible that either the British or the Dutch would be doing an invasion of Tortuga at some point. So we won't be able to do much about that right now. Of course, they will be weak. As soon as we've done a little bit of fortifications, actually I believe in Tortuga we are currently, yes, we're building some fortification. That's going to be done in April. After that we'll start building some more troops there, just so that we'll be able to send in, I don't know, a battalion of men there or something like that. Because a battalion would probably be enough to beat down the enemies, considering that they are now out of supplies already. Of course, our garrison there is also out of supplies and is severely outnumbered at this point. But I think, yes, a battalion of troops would probably be able to break down any enemy resistance there. Unfortunately, the garrisons were indeed outnumbered here in Caribbean, and the British captured the civilian mining colonies there. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the garrisons to actually retake it quite yet, but once we get our coastal fortification done in Tortuga, which is going to be relatively early next year, we'll start producing a lot of extra troops here. Which I think at least a battalion is required to retake it. And because we don't have a huge garrison in Tortuga right now, and I don't want to take too much out of the troops in here. So I'll just build the new ones, so it's gonna take a while before we can retake it. But at the same time, since we're no longer paying for the minerals in there, that means that we'll be getting a decent bit of extra income in the near future. And since we haven't quite gotten rid of the debt that we have right now, of course, by the end of the year, or by the start of next year, we should have gotten rid of most of it at least. Because we do have pretty decent annual wealth, so that means that at least half of that is going to be gone by the January 1st. Our fleet from India has finally arrived home in France. Now, they will have to go through quite a bit of overhaul, but that is going to be another few ships for our operations here. Although it's only 1 second rate, 4 fourth rates, well, it's a 5 rates and 4 6 rate and 2 7 rates, so it's actually relatively many ships comparatively. Now, of course, deployment times have been surpassed so much, and the maintenance and all that, so yeah, these are not going to be usable anytime soon. But at least they're here, and now our ships in Bay of Biscay are 35 ships of the line, 74 frigates, 26 brigs, about 10 sloops. All in all, making a quite sizable fleet. So if the enemy tries to raid Brest, it's gonna be very bloody battle, and I think it's a battle that we would be winning. And there we have it, that's another episode. There was a lot less action this year than last year, but we have been repairing a lot of our ships in Quebec, for example, and then we've been expanding our fleet in Brest. And of course we've been building some troops pretty much everywhere where we can and so forth, so there's a lot of things going on in the background, but nothing particularly fancy right now. We did of course manage to redo the ship designs now, and I do believe that we are at least retooling a lot of shipyards. The smaller shipyards have already been retooled, and we're working on the 2 bigger ones right now. And we don't have the third-rate shipyard over here. I think we used to have one in Toulon. Not anymore, which is certainly a problem. We may need to build another shipyard here in Brest, actually. But at the same time, we are focusing on getting some sloop masts and 10-pounder cannons, just so that we can start upgrading our 6th race to the newer versions. Because we do still have a bit of a debt, so that's going to be a problem. We'll be able to pay off most of that by the start of the next episode. So it shouldn't be too big of an effect anymore on our economy, and we are gaining money, so that's not the problem. We are of course building a fair bit of ships here. We are retooling some of the 5th rates, and then a 6th rate and a 7th rate. So mostly focusing on the smaller ships right now, because we have some of the bigger ships still building the old versions before we manage to retool the shipyard. So especially the 1st and 2nd race, it will take us somewhere till the summer before we can start refitting some of the ships there. And the 2nd rate is going to be done in May, and the 1st rate is going to be done in July. So it should work quite well in terms of timing. There might be a small gap in between where we don't build anything, because starting yet another build at 1 month before it's retooled, or perhaps even half a month before it's retooled, is not going to be a good idea, because I'd rather get the updated designs underway. Now of course in Toulon we don't have shipyard right now. We are working on building a new one, but that's going to take a while still. And in Quebec we are focusing very strongly on repairing the ships. We now have 5 slipways there, so we can actually repair quite a bit, and we are retooling the 4th rate shipyard there to be able to build the new ones. Of course the repairs are going relatively okay. Now if you have a look at the fleet, we can see that the 1st race have already been repaired. And then there's 2 of the 2nd race have been repaired, and so forth. But there's still plenty to repair. Pretty much all of the 4th race have not been repaired, the 3rd race. And some of the smaller ones have been repaired, but it's still going to take a while, probably at least another year, before we have everything repaired, because a lot of these ships have very bad damage. Also, you and you have not been repaired. Okay, just checking. At the same time, the fleet in Brest hasn't had many of the ships retooled yet, but we are working towards that, and we'll be able to hopefully get the updated ships there sooner rather than later. Because while these ships, we have a lot of them, like our ships in Bay of Biscay do go up to like 144 ships, I believe. That was the latest calculations that I did, and there might have been more ships since then. But it is quite a bit, especially once we got the ships from India here, which of course will take a long while to go through the overhaul, but they'll get through that eventually. Of course, there is a problem in Brest that it doesn't have quite enough maintenance facilities there to actually maintain this much ships. We have more than double over the limit right now, or more than double the capacity, so it is slowed down quite significantly. So that's something that once we get some more of these projects completed, we should probably start building more maintenance facilities, even if we're not building any maintenance supplies right now, because to save the cash a little bit. But increasing the capacity will be very important. Now if we go into research, we are getting the next gunpowder upgrade already. We're trying to speed through these certain researches to get into even better sales, just to keep up with the Dutch and the British, because they seem to have much faster ships than at least we had at the start of the year. Now we have done the redesigning of the ships, so we should probably be more or less on par right now. But I'd rather make sure that we don't fall behind in there, so we're getting that. And of course, it does save us some tonnage in the ships as well, since we can make the gunpowder storages a little bit smaller. And in Toulon, we are getting the shipyard operations time and cost saving, which is going to be done next year. A bit late next year, but we'll get that done, then we'll start getting the research rate up, which is going to take a long while. But once we get the shipyard operations, we can then, especially once we build the shipyard in Toulon, and then we can keep expanding the shipyards in Quebec. We're actually building another shipyard there, but that's going to take a while. And in Portugal we're building a shipyard, but that's also going to take several years still. So that's not going to be anytime soon, but eventually we'll have that. We are of course building a fair bit of more troops. In Portugal we're currently getting coastal fortification, and after that we'll start building a lot more troops there, because the battles in Caribbean have started yet again. Our civilian section made yet another colony on that same cursed island, So yeah, the battles will keep on going, but once we get a bit more troops, we'll send in a battalion or two of men there to defend it, and it should be plenty to keep the British out for a while. Also in Quebec, we are researching the fire control things there, and we'll then start doing the more of the optic stuff there. We are researching the EM sensor sensitivity up here, so once we get both of that and the FD crowd sensor research, which actually is going to take a while because the research rate over here is not brilliant. Now we are of course building more research labs in here, but those are also going to take a long while to be completed. So I'm not expecting those to be completed anytime soon, but eventually Quebec will have a bit higher research rate than what it has now. We have of course started the colony in Bordeaux, which we did outline at the start of the episode, I believe. It does have a decent population capacity already. It could have 1 million people there. It doesn't have a huge amount right now, but it will improve. Secondly, in Gulf of Mexico we did another colony, but we haven't actually gotten anything else in here. It just has a little bit of workers. It will be expanding slowly, but we do need to start setting up some mines in both of these sooner rather than later, just so that we can get a bit more minerals, especially for Orleans. It would be very useful. I believe it does produce rum that is not being produced here in Orleans, so that's good. And then of course some more wood is always nice, although, well, we got a decent bit of wood there still, so that's not a problem, but 4.6 million is not bad. And it might have some extra minerals there as well, we just haven't found them. Of course the same is true for Orleans, it has very high crown-based survey potential. And with the Indian fleet returning to France, we don't really have that many ship movements planned right now, other than the ships going back and forth in Mediterranean between Barcelona and Toulon, just to make sure that our fleets with the Spanish Mediterranean fleet are staying together, but that we can do the overhauls there without a problem. So it's like a few months in one port and then going to the other one and so forth, just to keep the ships in good shape, in good fighting condition. But other than that, we're mostly quite defensive right now in Europe, because we do know that the enemies have more, at least in total have more. I'm not sure if they have more in Europe specifically or not. I mean, our fleet is over 1 million tons there in total, which is more than half of what we have total on our navy itself. But yeah, we have a pretty strong navy there, so if they try to attack us, we should be able to defend quite effectively. Especially once we start getting the updated ships, that's going to be very good. Especially the brigs, those are going to be excellent. Because they get rather close, they have high speed, they do large damage, and with the extra hit points... Oh, and we did set up another extra layer for the first rates as well, so those are going to be tanking even more than they were before. Of course, it does increase the price of producing them a little bit, but still, it's going to be rather beneficial in combat. We have still been doing some surveying, especially in the North Sea a little bit, and then around the Atlantic. But for the most part, that's more or less it in terms of surveying right now. And we barely have any ships here in the... Oh, well, we do have a survey ship in Arabian Sea right now. But over here in the Indian Ocean, we barely have any ships there. I mean, most of our ships are either in Brest or Quebec right now. And most of the ships in Quebec are still needing repairs. But sooner or later we'll have our fleets back in order. Hopefully next year we'll be able to use them a bit more. We'll have to think about that and do some planning, I suppose. Now, in terms of the wealth, we actually do have pretty good income right now. I mean, we're still producing some maintenance supplies. I believe in Quebec, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, in Quebec, because we have a huge fleet there, and we don't actually have that huge stockpile, and the fact that we are very much over our limit. Again, almost twice our maintenance capacity there in shipping, and we are building more ships. Actually, no, I don't think we are building more ships there. We're just repairing them. So we are getting some maintenance supplies still, which is technically hurting our economy. At the same time, we're still making about 600 wealth per month. It's not that bad, in all honesty, and with our trade deal with the Spanish, we'll be getting a 5,500, so that's going to leave us with 3,000 debt at the start of the year, and that shouldn't be too bad. I think we can manage that. Now, in terms of civilian mining colonies, we have a fair bit in Caribbean. Of course, if we can recapture the island that we and the British have been fighting over, or rather our civilian sectors have been fighting over, we should be able to get a lot more in there. I mean, we do have a pretty decent already, but more is always more. In terms of our civilian shipping, it's still only one colony ship and one freighter, so that's not doing all that strong, but they are doing at least a little bit trading in between Quebec and Plaisance and all that area. They seem to be taking a fair bit of colonists into the colony that we have there. Well, technically it's a colony that the civilian shipping started. They set up a colony here, but since there's no colonization cost, we've been bringing colonies there with our civilian shipping, but it's alright. It does produce a little bit. We're not actually taking any of that income right now, although we could, but on the other hand, that is money that would be losing, so I'm probably not going to do that right now. We might send our own colony here at some point, but we'll see about that. So if last year was a year of war, this was certainly a year of innovation for not only us but many other nations as well, as far as we can tell. We've been doing a fair bit of job in research and updating our ship designs and all that, so it's going to be interesting to see in the coming years how well our new ship designs will actually fare in combat. But that was more or less it for this episode, so make sure to check out Roach's channel, link is down below in the description. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.